Tonight's presentation is from Ross Denton. I met Ross several years ago in conjunction with our work with the Canterbury District Health Board. The Canterbury District Health Board is doing some really cool things about changing cultures and behaviours and the way health services are delivered in Canterbury, and it's doing it really well. So well that internationally there's huge international recognition. People fly in from all around the world to say what's going on in Canterbury, why are things working so well here? And one of the reasons for that is because everybody in the Canterbury health system believes that they're working together for the patient, and that it's not about their profession or the organisation that they work for. And they also recognise that the other people that they work with in the health system are their colleagues, and they all have different strengths and weaknesses, and by understanding about what your colleagues do, how they work, what motivates them, and how you can work really well with them is a really important element of making a system, an organisation work really well together. And Ross Denton has been involved in that aspect and other aspects of leadership and professional development in the Canterbury health system over many years, and has been really instrumental in the successes that have been achieved here. So that's what I know about Ross in the field of the health sector, which is sort of my background. Ross does this kind of work in many other sectors as well, for many corporates and other organisations. So we're very lucky to have Ross come along tonight to talk to us about working well, getting the best out of your relationship with your colleagues. So on that note, I'll hand over to Ross to tell us some more about it.
When I was given the opportunity to come and talk to you folk, it was rather daunting, because you folk communicate for a job. You're professional communicators. I was thinking, goodness, what can I hope to offer you? And I thought, well, if there's a predominance of technical writers, if most of the communication that you see is written, then maybe I can offer you the two fundamentals that I use as a behavioural coach around achieving change in the workplace, which is around looking at behaviour and understanding conversation. So that's what I'm going to do tonight. I'm just going to give you a brief look at two core elements of how to deal with things like this. Because they do, don't they? I mean, people really can drive you mad at work. Why do you think that is?
They're different to us? Or too similar to us?
Similar, absolutely. Sorry, if I flip that on, that will help. Because 75% of the world don't see it the way you do. So, yeah, that's actually an optimistic view. You're right. Depending on the model that you look at analysing behaviour, it's close to around 90% are going to see it differently. But in terms of in broad brush, it's about 75% of the world see it differently. So, I mean, have you ever had a situation where you've had a conversation, you've had a clear understanding of what needs to happen with the other individual, and they've headed out thinking black was white and complete opposites? Yeah. So it's not just behaviours; it's also how we communicate to make that more effective. So we're going to start off actually having a look at conversations, and I love this quote. Yeah, because I mean, having conversations there's nothing difficult about it, is it? We do it all the time. We do it with families, with spouses, but organisations, we really don't do it particularly well in a business setting. So in a business setting, tell me, why do you think we have conversations? What do they achieve? What's the purpose of conversations in a work environment?
Get stuff done.
Get stuff done? Yeah, just transact information, yeah?
Sure.
Could you please fill up that glass of wine for me? Yep.
To understand stuff.
Yeah, get a shared understanding.
Clarification, so we're all on the same page.
Yep.
To come up with ideas.
Absolutely, a bit of innovation and brainstorming. Yep.
Hold a rapport.
Yeah, that human aspect of it, just actually building rapport. Yep. So how was the weekend? What are you up to? Not that it's important in itself, but that makes us human. You recognise that. Whole bunch of things. You know, you're exploring your new ideas and being innovative, making plans, problem solving, that developing common understanding that Emma said. There's a bunch of reasons why we do it. But there's something that's changing, and we call it a change from the old sea world to the new sea world. Now what I'm talking about is the way businesses were structured, the way that they communicated was very much, and you still see aspects of it. Now, as Ian said, you know, I spend quite a bit of time in health, and in some ways health is a different beast. Now you work with lots of different industries, and probably every single industry says we're unique, which tends to be a fallacy because they've got so many commonalities, but there are some interesting things about the health industry that are different. And because of their jumbled structures that they use, where you can report to 3 people instead of a single individual, the way that they communicate, and they've broken down a lot of this command and control. So the old sea world was about command and control, where you can coerce people and you expect them to comply. And the way the world is moving, and I think Christchurch, with the way that our earthquakes affected the way that we work, so many changes that have come about, social changes that we look at buildings and what's happened here, but the way that we function as a society and groups of people is fundamentally different. It's more chaotic. There is greater change. There's demographic change. Our expectations around the way that we work is quite different. And therefore it's not as clear. The way that we need to communicate is quite different. So in an environment that is changing and is turbulent and is dynamic, now just the conversation just that we were having out before we over drinks, some of the technology and changes that some of the businesses that we were talking about was so cool, wasn't it? You know, what these people are doing, and to me it's almost like science fiction stuff. Changing fast. So the collaboration, the co-creation. I mean, who here is an employee as opposed to a contractor? Just out of interest? Employee? So the rest of you are contractors? Yeah. So again, that requires collaboration. No, well, not to say that employees don't, but in smaller dynamic businesses and industries, there's a lot more collaboration and co-creation how you work. So it's fundamentally different. And if you are in a leadership role, the way that you lead in those environments are quite different. And in some ways, you can think of, you know, the good old days, things were really clear, it was stable, and I'm thinking maybe the 1980s in New Zealand, and there was command and control. And somebody else had the answers, it wasn't over to you, was it? Because someone else knew, because someone would tell you what to do, whether you liked it or not, they'll tell you. But we have to lead quite differently in such a turbulent, changing, dynamic environment. Okay, what I want you to do is just grab someone next to you, and what makes the conversation effective? What makes conversations effective? What did you discuss? Listening. Absolutely.
Actually engaging in it rather than just passing words.
Yep, very good.
Eye contact. Yeah.
Eye contact, yes. Because we were chatting before and you did that very well. You actually feel like you're important in this conversation, you're not just sitting there and happen to be in the same place. What else do you discuss?
Empathy.
Sorry?
Empathy.
Yeah.
In conversation, I think.
So even if it's a transactional conversation, you can still get this really.
A genuine willingness to communicate on both parts. So both parties are actually genuinely engaged in the conversation.
You were teenagers, have you? I just came to mind.
Thankfully not.
But you're right, yeah, that does make it effective. Someone at the back, what do you come up with?
Oh, empathy as well.
Yeah?
Empathy and listening.
Ian, were you just drinking wine or were you having a...
all the same things.
Right.
Actually, when you were saying about teenagers, I was thinking what makes a conversation effective with boys sometimes is not having eye contact, de-intensifying the encounter.
Yes.
It's possible.
Sorry?
I think it's also, you know, if you don't know the person, you've got first have to break guards a little bit. I think it's important that you bring them down to the same, even if there might be a different hierarchy too, so bring them down to the same level so you can actually talk about it openly and in a friendly manner.
That eye contact thing can be a bit misleading in multicultural situations.
Yes, it can.
You know, a lot of Pacific communities will be showing you respect by not making eye contact with you.
Dead right.
It could be a bit of a wild hearing.
Oh, and I struggle with that particularly because to me eye contact is so important because I'm looking at body language and I'm getting all sorts of things and I realise it can be quite impolite to be because it appears to be staring. But you're right about teenagers too because the drive is fabulous for that because you've got your eyes on the road and there's no eye contact, so that's the intensifier.
I think a respect for other people too. You know, it's a two-way street. Use some conversation. Or an effective conversation.
Yeah, it does. Because you can certainly, I think all of us have been in conversations where it felt dismissed as part of the conversation. Now I want you to ask each other, so just again a chat, what do we do well in conversations? And the we is the two of you that are having a conversation. So just, what do you think you do well in a conversation? We've heard what makes them effective. What do you do well? Because what we also need, and I'm not going to get you to do this as an exercise, but what we also need to think is, what do we need to get better at? And what advantage will we gain? I speak in bullet points. With my behavioural style, when I'm thinking about doing something or I'm wanting something to be done, I can come across as being quite blunt. And certainly it could be even look aggressive, which has got nothing to do with aggression, it's got everything to do with just energy and excitement and poof, you want something to happen. So that's something that I need to be aware of. So that's something that I need to get better at. The advantage is that I'm more likely to build empathy, I'm more likely to be heard. So if I'm wanting a result by using energy and bullet points to make it clear, I'm actually defeating the purpose for many people that I'd be talking to. What I often do when I'm talking about conversations, and I'm not going to get you to do it tonight, just from a time point of view, but I want you to think about the impact. Again, in pairs, whether you know each other or not, I say, you've got two roles to play. I want each of you to think of a situation that you've had with work recently where you felt really good. That you felt it used your strengths, that you were working as your best self. It was a really positive, rewarding experience. And you might have been the only one that noticed, that's okay. But something that felt really good. And then in pairs, I get people to do an exercise where one person talks about this really good experience and all the other person has to do is reflect back. This is what I heard and I see you're animated by it, and just be back. And if they need anything to be clarified, they'll ask clarifying questions. So there's no judgment or anything else like that. Now this might feel like a rather weird and uncomfortable exercise to do. And calisthenics sounds a whole lot more exciting than doing an exercise like this. But the benefit, people come away and I say, how did that feel? I said, fabulous. Why don't we have work conversations like that? Was it difficult? Did you lack the knowledge? Was it technically demanding? To actually say, okay, Emma, tell me about a time that was really good, just recently. And you get the opportunity to relive a positive experience like that with no judgment, just appreciation. And when we consider that how important conversations are, and I mean, you guys work in the tech world, and this is, conversations are old technology, I guess, but just so important. If anything, they're becoming more important because of the ease of actually being separated through technology. Now, I worked with a guy who's a team leader of 6 or 7 people, and they worked in a little pod together. And any time he wanted to talk to his group, he flicked them an email. And they worked in an area about that size. And because he found conversations really uncomfortable, and yet if he had been given the skills and help to actually develop that, it was a dysfunctional team. But there's dysfunctional behaviour. You recognise that. So if he had been given the skills to have those conversations, that team would have performed so much better. particularly if they had some of those rewarding conversations. Tell me about a time that you felt really good about yourself. So you might want to try that. You guys have known each other, you haven't seen each other for 10 years, so maybe on your way home tonight or next time you catch up for coffee, talk about it. Not just catch up on what's happened, but actually allow yourself to experience something that's possible. Now, this is a model. So I thought, I've got to give you something other than steak knives to take away, don't I? This is a model around having effective conversations that I think will be useful for you to know. Dead simple. In conversations around change, so we're talking about working more effectively together. So this is not purely, could you top up the wine please, which is totally transactional. Do you want it? This is about creating change. You want something different. So you've got a current reality and you're looking for a desired future. It might just be, who said acknowledges a person, or was it you guys that were talking about that? It was about empathy. It might just be, ask me, no, it was you, sir, wasn't it? Said, build some rapport. So ask me about my weekend before you ask me to do something. It might be as simple as that. That might be the only change you're looking for. We're not looking at go and build me a building or create me a new piece of software. And in a conversation, hopefully, there's more than just you. But I should have practiced that, Sean. This is not a lot of point if you're the only person that you're having a conversation with. You don't need these models. So, current reality, desired future, and there's you. And someone else that you're having a conversation with. And there are three mindsets or stances that you need to take through. This is not a linear process, but there are three things that you want to take into a conversation around creating change. There's see, stretch, and support. So that's the model. That's a picture that, if you're interested, I can make sure that you get just to remind you of what this is about. So the see mindset is you see someone as their best self. You don't just see the person that's rocked in late, a bit irritated. You actually see what's going on with this person. Or someone's elated. What is actually going on? Who is this person? What is the whole person that I'm seeing in front of me? It takes some time. Yeah, it's much easier just to see that one-dimensional presentation of an individual and make a call, but you're trying to look deeper and see someone who is best self, the struggles they may have, their strengths that they may have, who is the individual. So a conversation around change is not just a transactional one. Who is this person that's standing in front of me? I really need to understand that, where they're at, where their mind is at. The stretch mindset or stretch stance is about creating this future reality. What is the stretch? What am I wanting this person or this process or this interaction to be different? How am I wanting to be different? So there's motivation, there's resourcefulness, there's the actual destination that you want them to get to. So it could be, this person comes in every day, they never ask how I am, they never engage with me as a person. That might be it. It's not a particularly positive example, but it's the best way to think of at the time. So the stretch is, how do we see with warmth? How do we recognise as an individual? Yeah, so that's the stretch. So you want to stretch this person. So the support is, it's not a push, it's actually support. How do I support that person to do that? So is there a plan? Is there mindfulness that I can help them with? Can I encourage them to see it? What is it? So the model doesn't give you the answers, it just gives you the three mindsets that you need to bring into the conversation. So I've got to see the person as the whole self. So it's not just about me helping the other person change as in a benevolent way. It might be me being the recipient of something that I don't particularly like and I want to improve, so how do I do it that way? It could be a team leader that I'm dealing with, it could be a manager that I'm dealing with that I need to change. So see them as a whole person, stretch them. Make that an easy stretch, and then how do I support them? So that's the model. But what is that got to do with behavioural profiling? Because it's interesting, I've been involved with looking at different models of psychometric testing and things like that for a number of years. And for many, many years, no one was the slightest bit interested. You'd say, people would ask, so what do you do? And you'd explain, and they go, oh. But since programs like this have come along, I don't know if anyone that's not familiar, it's, sorry?
I don't know.
Criminal Minds, that's what it is. This is the FBI's Behavioural Assessment Unit. And so they look at horrible, hideous crimes and they assess the sort of behaviours that drive it and they profile the people. So since this has become part of pop culture, people are so much more interested in things like DISC and Myers-Briggs because it's behavioural profiling. But we were going, recognise this? Somebody talked about this, yeah? The golden rule, because we talk about it, don't we? And it actually comes from Luke chapter 6, verse 31. You see, I'm going to say that this is rubbish.
Yeah.
And yet we're talking...
Treat them how they want. Blasphemy.
It is, because we're told it's the golden. But the model that we use, if we can, is a model called DISC. That's the one that I'll just briefly outline. There are lots of good models out in the marketplace. And DISC is one of the models that we use. Well, it's the main model that we use. What am I trying to say? There are many good models in the marketplace, of which DISC is one. It's a particularly easy to understand model, although the intricacies and complexity of it is hidden from view. So it's robust, it's tested, it's empirically researched and validated, but it's quite simple to understand.
This is a model of
Behaviour.
thinking.
So it's made up of 4 core types. So people who have predominantly, and we're predominantly going to be one. We're a mixture of all, but we're predominantly one. And this is where we get understanding different drivers and different motivators. So someone who's predominantly D is going to be quite direct. Maybe you've got some D in you, quite direct. Competitive, they're outgoing, dynamic, bold. That's predominantly. People who are predominantly I tend to be energising and affirming, also outgoing, dynamic and bold. So they share some characteristics. People who are predominantly S, patient, calm, humble, inclusive, and these aren't complete descriptors, this is just to give you a general idea. And C's, they are precise, they're analytical, deliberate, but again they share over with these folk, they're quiet and humble. So you can probably see aspects of yourself in some of those, not all perhaps, because we tend to be a mixture. But if someone falls into one quadrant, and say for example this person here, they like precision, they're quiet, they're analytical, and you're one of these people. Just imagine for a minute that you're energised and affirming, outgoing, and you're trying to communicate. If you communicate as an energising, affirming, outgoing, dynamic person, you're just going to be irritating, aren't you, to someone that likes that? Now, we can see it when it's up on a chart, and yet so often we can't see it when it's ourselves. And you're talking about mirroring. I think you're talking more about role modelling, but if you can try to mirror the behaviour that you see, you're more likely to get a positive response. So if you see someone that is humble and quiet, then if you go across and change the way I'm talking, haven't I? So you try to mirror that. That's not patronising, that's not changing who you are, it's still being completely authentic to your own self. But you're trying to talk in their language, as opposed to, this is how I see the world, and it's great, and it's dynamic, and I'm bold, and it's really threatening to people.
And I want you to do it all differently tomorrow.
Yes, which can be fun if you like that, but it's petrifying if you like that.
I find the exact opposite. I much prefer people who are exact opposites to me. I get on much better with them. Since people who are similar to me, I find irritating.
Well, interesting you say that, because that's not unusual. We're talking about two people who are in this area here. So D, direct, competitive, outgoing, both of them are like that, and I see we're butting heads constantly. How do we deal with that? So that's happened, and it's quite simple. You just had a fairly clear delineation of who's doing what. Because people there like control, they like being able to manage what's in their sphere of control. They don't like interference, they don't like micromanagement, so if they've got someone else saying, come on, it doesn't work. So delineate clearly. And yet, the opposite here tends to frustrate those people. So they are looking for quicker results. They are looking for something that's stronger than the humble and inclusive people there. So it would depend on your style as to quite what that works. And that's why we use this model, so we can understand our own style. We're going to talk about that. Yes, I am. The purpose of using, and I'm not here to push this, the purpose of using any of these models is firstly to understand yourself, because this is it's a way of decoding behaviour and looking and saying, well, I recognise that. I recognise myself in those are the things that I am. So this is me, for example. My priorities are being inclusive, being humble, affirming. I recognise that. But then it's recognising others' behaviour. So we've seen different people talk and we've got a sense of how they might be, just a snapshot.
Then you might be wrong too.
Absolutely. What is the risk? Because it's a good poke in the chest, as I say.
That's because I don't know where you are.
But you could be wrong. What is the risk of being wrong? So if, for example, I saw you as a quiet, affirming, humble type person over here, and therefore I tried to respond to you in that manner, what's the risk? What's the downside? You're shaking your head?
No.
There isn't any. No, you're right.
Human beings at the end of the day.
Exactly.
They're not a profile.
So we are human beings, and if I've recognised something incorrectly or just seen an aspect of you that wasn't really true to you, and I've tried to communicate more effectively along those lines, I'm still trying to communicate more effectively. I don't need to pinpoint exactly who you are and your style. I've just tried to communicate more effectively. And you're constantly reevaluating that. But going to your point, you cannot use your behavioural style. Whatever your strength is, you cannot use that as an excuse. That does not give you permission to say, oh, I'm not a details person. That may be true, that that's not your strength, but you cannot say that I cannot do it, which is a real shame. And the reason why, I'll just flick into emphasising why we do this. But the three steps that we use around understanding behaviour is to understand ourselves. Who are we? What are our strengths? So that helps us to be authentic. The second one is to recognise others. So you recognise when you need to tone down the eye, and being effervescent and excited and passionate is actually going to de-energise some people. Recognise that so you do tone it down, and adapting. Now, again, if you want any of these slides, if there's anything useful in there, just let Emma know and you can have any of this. A number of people have broken down what effective communication is, and all of them have come. Be interesting to see what from a technical writing point of view, if you agree, if I don't get fruit thrown at me. It's three main areas, and they don't change very much depending on who's done it. And it's this is Alan Pease. I'm just hoping they change the colour. The percentages come up. Yes, they do. Fabulous. So words and content is only 7% effective communication.
Well, just a quick question about this stuff,
Yep.
because it's presented as hard facts. But is it hard facts? Is there science behind this, or is it snake oil?
No, absolutely, it's hard facts.
If you run said, yeah, you're right, snake oil.
No,
Big fact.
What's the science?
the science that actually comes from Hippocrates, so there's the four humours.
Even though it's a meeting room. Oh my God.
And then in the 40s there was quite a lot of work to develop the DISC model, which was around what it actually does is it measures people's response to various stimuli. And that's why we can understand that people are likely to behave given the various stimuli that they're exposed to. And through the 70s and 80s, the model was bought by businesses that were involved in psychometric testing. It's currently owned by a company called Wiley, who are huge publishers. They publish biomedical journals and things like that. And the amount of investment that they have based in Denmark, like they have psychiatrists and psychologists that spend, that's their entire job, is working on the validity of this model. So they do apply all the different models to see, so this, you come out as a DI under DISC, how does that work? Is that consistent over time? Is it consistent across models and different circumstances? So, and I can, and anyone that's interested, there's a host of research papers that I can give to do that. So, absolutely validated and tested. Mm.
We should wrap up.
And that's it. That's it.
Well,